In our last explanation for offending behaviour, we're going to return to the psychodynamic approach. So remember, this approach looks at unconscious drives and childhood experiences. So again, if you're not 100% confident with this approach, go back and have a look at the screencast on the psychodynamic explanation, and that will refresh your memory. So there are two aspects we're going to look at looking at the psychodynamic explanations. The first is regarding the development of the superego, and the second one looks back at Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis. So when we're thinking about the development of the superego, there are three developmental issues which could potentially lead to offending behaviour. The first is the development of a deviant superego. Now, this occurs during the phallic stage, during the Oedipus and the Electra complex, which is when the superego is developing, and during the identification stage, so when the child is identifying with the behaviours from the same sex parent. If that same-sex parent is displaying deviant behaviours, then the child will identify with that and then will also subsequently show those deviant behaviours as they get older. So, for example, if you're a girl identifying with your mother and your mother is showing criminal tendencies or offending behaviour, you would then develop those same offending behaviours. The second idea is the idea of an underdeveloped superego. Now, this again occurs during the phallic stage, and if the superego doesn't fully develop, then the individual concerned won't feel the same guilt and moral responsibility that somebody with a well-developed superego would experience. Now, as we know, the superego is the part of the personality which is your conscience, it's your moral reasoning, and therefore without that, the id, which is driven by pleasure and impulse, becomes the dominant force. So a person with an underdeveloped superego is likely to have or likely to show more impulsive behaviour and more desire driven behaviour with an absence of guilt, therefore showing more criminal behaviour. The last explanation is an overdeveloped superego. So this is when the superego is far stronger than the id because it has developed far more during the phallic stage. Now, this actually seems quite counterintuitive because you would think that an overdeveloped ego would possibly lead to more moralistic behaviour. However, this is explained through the constant feelings of guilt that an overdeveloped superego can lead to. And in order to satisfy those feelings of guilt, the individual is more likely to commit crimes because those crimes will lead to punishment, and that punishment satisfies the superego. The second explanation we're looking at is the maternal deprivation hypothesis, and it is worth looking back at the attachment screencast on maternal deprivation hypothesis if you can't remember what this is. Essentially, what Bowlby proposed was that separation from a mother at a young age leads to long-term consequences, and he termed this emotionless psychopathy. So emotionless psychopathy is characterised by a lack of guilt, a lack of empathy for others, and therefore showing these tendencies you're more likely to show offending behaviour. So you can look at both of those in more detail in the pre-reading, and before you come into the lesson, make sure you can describe the three developmental issues with the superego that can lead to offending behaviour. You can link these developmental issues with offending behaviour, and you can explain how separation at a young age can lead to offending behaviour.